So welcome everyone to today's office hours on marketing community transportation. I'm Heather Edmonds, Program Associate with the National Aging and Disability Transportation Center. So welcome everyone. Before we get started, I'll go through a few housekeeping items. And while I'm doing that, it would be great if you can introduce yourselves in the chat. Just say, put your name in there and as well as the organization you're from. So all participants are muted and this session is being recorded and those materials will be available to you. Closed captioning is available. You can turn on the captioning by clicking the CC button at the bottom of the screen. If possible, this session is meant to be interactive. So if possible, please keep your cameras on to add to the interactive session of this meeting, and that will happen at the end of the presentation during the group discussion. And again, this meeting is designed to be interactive, so we encourage you to put your experiences through the chat or by raising your hand and unmuting yourself. And this is a quick overview of what's going to happen today. I'll give an NADTC overview, and then we'll have our presenter today, Danny Schnothorst from the Mobility Outreach Coordinator from HRDA, and then we'll have our group discussion. And as a quick background, NADTC is a partnership between USA Aging and Easter Seals, and we are funded by the Federal Transit Administration. And our overall mission is to promote the availability of accessible transportation options to serve the needs of older adults, people with disabilities, caregivers, and communities. And we do that through a couple of major objectives. We provide person-centered technical assistance, and that's through a variety, we provide a variety of resources on a variety of transportation-related issues. And for technical assistance, you can contact us through our toll-free number or email, and that information is on our website. We also provide training opportunities, which will be through our webinars, conferences, meetings, and online courses, which are free. And we use a variety of communication channels to reach out to the public, which will be through our website, our social media, which we are on Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn, and our monthly e-alerts, which is our newsletters and our blogs. And we also invest in community solutions and by providing community grants to programs looking to develop and implement innovations and new models for increasing the availability of accessible transportation services for older adults and people with disabilities. And now I'll turn things over to Danny.
Thank you, Heather, and thanks for having me today. As she mentioned, I am Danny Schnothorst. I'm the Mobility Outreach Coordinator here at HRDA, also known as the Heart of Iowa Regional Transit Agency. Next slide. So a little bit about HRDA. We actually just had our 40th birthday this year. We were formed under an agreement. We serve 7 counties in central Iowa: Boone, Dallas, Jasper, Madison, Marion, Story, and Warren County. We provide public transit services, and we are an on-demand service, which means folks call into us, ask us, hey, we'd like a ride, to the grocery store at 5 p.m. on Wednesday, and then, we'll get them there. And then there's some links there for our social media as well. So some tools, I'm going to go ahead and I'll go over a few of the tools that I use. Mentimeter and Pull Everywhere. I'm sure a lot of you guys have used that. It's basically just an interactive, polling software. It's live, integrate it into, PowerPoint, or you could just have the website up as well. Jamboard and Miro are also 2 things that I like to use. Jamboard specifically, basically you can, your team can put, sticky notes. You'll have like this big, board on the website, and you can create little sticky notes. Maybe you want to add a note for, this event. So you'll just click add a sticky note, and then type your note. Doodle scheduling pool, a lot of you might have used this as well. This is something I use to, schedule meetings. It's really helpful when I'm doing like focus groups to get everyone on the same page, to try to get, just a good meeting time that works for everybody. Everybody's busy, and it just works really well to get everybody on the same page. Canva is super easy to use. That's what I personally use for all of my designing. It's free. They also have a pro version that costs a little bit of money. It's also free for nonprofits. So we were able to take advantage of that. And basically it's really simple to design things. That's where we do all of our design, social media, brochures, anything that you see Herta do, it most likely comes on Canva. Doodly is a video software that I use. We'll show you a video a little later, what that looks like. Also super easy to use. It was pretty cheap. It wasn't free, but it was pretty cheap. Asana is a task management software that we use. That's just a website. It's good for projects, especially when there's multiple people involved, that you can assign tasks to them, put notes, attach files, and just create deadlines. So that's super easy to use as well. And I'll show you a screenshot of that. And then social media, we do Facebook Live. You can do Instagram Live, Facebook events, LinkedIn events, Reddit Ask Me Anything. If you're a bigger transit system, that's definitely something I would suggest doing. And Twitter chat as well. We routinely participate in National RTAP.
That you have them saved for every month.
We routinely through National RTAP, as well as just chatting with our audience. Next. So here are some examples of social media. So for our 40th birthday, we gave away a gift card every month. And we just kind of, for example, like December was, what's your favorite holiday tradition? Like and comment below your favorite holiday tradition, and we'll give away a gift card. One month, what we did was we asked 3 different questions. So that's what you're seeing on the left here. If you could make one improvement to Herta service, what would it be? Each time you answered one of the 3 questions, that was an entry into the contest. So that was just a kind of a way we used, giving away a gift card, but also receiving feedback. So we got a lot of feedback from that. We also asked, what would be something you would like to see added to Herta? But yeah, a lot of great feedback from that. There on the right, we did a Herta kindness challenge. We also did a wellness challenge. Basically, we got together, we got a calendar out, and we, brainstormed 31 things to do that you can do, just to be kind. We received a lot of great feedback from that as well. Just our communities really like that we're trying to get out and make a difference. Next, please. So here is Mentimeter. This isn't live or anything, but this is just an example of what it looks like if you hadn't seen it before. You go to the website and you use the code. You can also text in. They'll give you like a text, like a phone number to text, and then a code to text as well. And so the question would be, how are you feeling today? You could just text in, excited, happy, whatever you want, and then that will show up live. And then the more responsive you get, the bigger those messages are. So that's a really good way to track, events and stuff, how people are engaging, and it's just a good way to get the audience involved as well. Next, please. So this is Doodle. So for example, the NADTC office hours, there were 3 participants. Which day would it work best for the office hours? So people vote. You can vote yes, maybe, or no. So that yellow there, that's yes if need be. So you'll see here, December 15th at 1 o'clock, which is where we're at right now. That works the best. That's 3 yeses. So just an easy way. And that's just a URL too that you can just send over to people. Anybody can create one for free, or you can pay and unlock some features as well. Next slide. All right, and here's a video here. Heather, I think, we were having some issues getting the video to play, so we're going to go ahead and play it. Not in this slideshow. So this is So there was an example of Doodly. You may or may not have noticed that there were some different slight variations. For example, chalkboard versus whiteboard versus glassboard, real hand versus cartoon hand, different colors of hands, different writing materials. So that's just went to show you. You can also add music, voiceovers. It's super easy to use. And I use it a lot just to, even if I create a short 10-second intro to something, it's fun to use and kind of add a little spice to your video or whatever you're using it for. Next slide. So this is Asana. So this was one of the projects we had done for NADTC. And basically what this is, so you'll see two collapsible things. Here's objective one, and then there's everything that we need to do under that. And then the assignee, that's who's responsible for it, and the due date. You'll see some of them have comments, the 2 bubble and 1 bubble, 3 bubble, and then you'll mark them off as you're done. So you can see, for that first objective, everything that had a due date was done. So again, it's super easy to use. The only problem with Asana, it does take a little time to build it. Someone has to go in and, input everything. But once you do it, it's super easy to use to keep track of your project, make sure you stay on deadlines, as well as, for example, so Julia had missed a couple meetings. So we were able to go ahead and click, one of her assignments, and she had updated in there. So we were able to go ahead and read that for the group. Next slide. Zoom reports. So this is something a lot of people don't know, but when I tell them about it, they love it. So for example, you log into your Zoom, not to the app, but go to zoom.com, you log in, you go to the settings, you click reports, and then you find your meeting. So for example, I held an NADTC focus group in August. There were 7 attendees. You click search, so you do your date range. You'll see how many attendees, and you'll just generate a report. And the next slide here shows what that report will look like. So, how often do you see patients utilizing public transportation? So you'll see there, all those questions are poll questions that I did in Zoom. And the blacked out, has the name, has the email. So you can see who's all there, the meeting minutes, and all of the answers as well. This is very helpful just to make sure you're not having to, type furiously live, making sure you get all the information down. Next slide. So some considerations. HERDA hired me in the middle of the pandemic. So if you can, I would strongly suggest having someone dedicated to marketing. Also events, I do the social media, I do the website. Basically, if you don't think it's worth it, it is. Just because, you're getting the word out there about your service, you're helping dispel negative connotations. And I love what I do, so I'm sure, other people would too. Branding kit. So we created a branding kit that basically includes font styles, color codes, our logos, when to use what. This is just important to make sure, it's consistent throughout all of our brand, as well as, if I take a vacation, someone can look at this branding kit and say, oh, I can't use this font here, or I have to use this logo there. And also, if I move on from the company later, then they'll have that branding kit to kind of go, review and make sure everything is consistent moving forward. We also set up a constant contact account for email blasts, newsletters. That's another thing, if you think you don't need to do it, you do. It's great for our dissemination list, press releases, like I said, newsletters. It goes out to our writers if we have a service interruption that we need to get out, holiday reminders, that sort of stuff. And last consideration I have is just, you got to find a happy medium of posting on social media. Not too much, not too little, because you can definitely post too much. Every day is too much, but once a month is too little. So you just got to find the happy medium, what works for you, and definitely do track, how many likes you're getting, how many unfollowers you're getting, just to make sure, what is working for your system. There is no right or wrong answer. What works for Herta might not work for a different system. So you just got to find what works for you. Next slide. So here's an example of our newsletter that I just mentioned that we built in Constant Contact. It's super easy to use. And we just actually sent our December one that includes like a holiday closures, a couple blurbs, some blogs. We're doing like a featured driver, featured product, as well as, asking for donations for our nonprofit. But it's just a good way to get set up with a newsletter, and it's relatively cheap as well. Next slide. So how we are using marketing. We have a Beyond the Bus event. It used to be in person. However, last year was the first year we did it virtually, and everybody loved having it virtually. So we're going to go ahead and stick with that. So we're kind of marketing, Beyond the Bus. This is how we're doing it. Using that Constant Contact to send out save the dates, save reminders. We're also posting on social media. Efforts will ramp up once the new year starts, but since it's still in April, but we use social media, make sure, you're putting everything on YouTube, also closed captionings as well. Actually, there's something that I didn't have in this PowerPoint. It's called otter.ai. And what you do is you have your recording, you download it, and then you put it into Otter, and Otter will transcribe it for you. And then from that transcription, and you could edit the transcription as well, but you could export it as a closed caption file. And then that's super easy to upload to YouTube, to Facebook, to make sure you have closed captions on your videos. Also, we're doing travel training sessions. For those who don't know what travel training is, it's basically, learning how to use Herta, learning how to use public transit. It's free, whether I do it one-on-one, whether it's a small group, large group, that's just dependent on, the need of the travel training. And it can be as simple as, me walking someone through virtually, how Herta works, how to pay, how to schedule, or it could be a group going on the bus, making sure that they know how to board the bus. If anybody's in a wheelchair, using the ramp, just making them feel comfortable with being able to how to ride. And then we just do a lot of speaking at various webinars. We try to teach as much as we can, and we try to learn as much as we can as well. That's what we're doing. Next slide, please. So we have some inclusive materials. So safe space stickers, that's what you see at the top right. Those are on all of our vehicles. It's just straight to the point that we're not going to tolerate any sort of discrimination whatsoever. We also have large print brochures, translated materials that you see at the bottom right there. All those materials are available on our website. And we also say that if anybody would like materials translated to another language, that we could definitely accommodate that as well. Spanish is just our most predominantly used after English. Impaired vision brochure, which we will show here in a second. Beyond the Bus Symposium Inclusion Matters. That was our last Beyond the Bus that we did, and those can be found on our website and our YouTube as well. I strongly suggest you go watch them because we had a lot of great speakers. So I would suggest that. And, we've got so much more that we're doing in the works that will be announced later. But we've done a lot for diversity, equity, inclusion. And personally, I'm proud of it and happy where we've come, and hope we can keep going. Next slide. So impaired vision brochure. Basically, this is what we use. We give the drivers. This is how to, assist people with impaired vision. We have a lot of riders who are vision impaired. So we need to make sure that they know what they're doing. And then we can also, give these around as well to make sure that we know, that you're safe with us. Next slide. Next slide shows more of the vision brochure. So this is, for example, here's what you do if there's a narrow space. It's narrow here. Keep holding my arm and walk directly behind me. Or, here's what you do going up or down the stairs. Basically, it's just prompts that you can use just to teach the driver how to handle, riders with impaired vision. Next slide. Here are a couple promotional materials we did. We are under mask mandate through March now. So we try to regularly put out mask messages. I know people get sick of them, but if we don't keep putting them out, people will get complacent and they will, inevitably stop wearing masks. Same with the materials in the buses. We have masks are required on the bus. If we just keep the same thing up from the very start of the pandemic, people will be like, oh, well, I've already seen that and not paying attention. What we try to do is we try to refresh it a lot. So people say, oh, look, a new sign, and they'll pay attention to it and see, oh, I still need to wear a mask. So we're just constantly trying to put out, no mask, no ride. Next slide. So a little bit about our website. It's built on National RTAP's web builder. It's super easy to use. That's what we use to build it. A lot of great features on there. Our website is available in over 100 languages. So we have a diversity, equity, inclusion efforts that we have a page dedicated to that. Everything we're doing, a page dedicated to health, what we're doing for COVID, like our COVID response. It's print friendly. So one time this lady called me and said, hey, I'm trying to print out your website to give to my mother because she doesn't have the internet. Well, I hadn't thought about that just because, I grew up on the internet. I'm relatively young, I like to think. But so that didn't even cross my mind that somebody would actually want to print out our website. And it wasn't printer friendly at that point. So I said, sure, I totally understand. Sorry about that. We went in and made it printer friendly. So now that when you're printing our website, the header's not following everywhere you go and it's not messing up. Thank a Herd a Hero. That's something we added just to get people, hey, thank you for what you do. We share those with our drivers. The drivers love them. They all love what they do, and it's just great to hear. Great feedback from the riders. And then we also use those to when we do our featured driver for the newsletter. And we feature the quotes from folks on our website as well. You can also file a complaint anonymously that goes straight to the executive director. We think that's important just because a lot of people are fearful of retaliation, if they want to complain about a driver or complain about the system. So you could do that. That's a secure form that goes straight to our executive director. We also have blogs. And so I would say, just make sure you have everything available on your website. So complete information, just make sure you try to cover everything. The more you cover, the better for your communities, better for your riders. And so it's available on desktop, tablet, and mobile. And the website builder, actually, you can cycle through, here's how I want it to look like on your cell phone. Here's what I want it to look like on the desktop. And lastly, just track your stats. Make sure you know how many new visitors you have for a week. Make sure you check the form responses. How many clicks did this blog get, etc. Next slide. So here's an example of one of the projects we're working on. This is Do You Have Transportation? And the premise of Do You Have Transportation is basically an awareness campaign where I go in and I talk with chiropractors' offices, dentist offices, it just basically anything that has appointments. And basically I say, here's the information. You know, the no-show rate for the US is 18.8%. That's a lot of missed appointments. That costs the healthcare industry $150 billion a year. And then basically what I say is, here's what we can do to help. You know, we'll give you magnets, we'll give you note cards. What we ask you to do is we say, when you're scheduling your appointment, ask your patients, hey, do you have transportation? If they have transportation to get to their appointment, great. Then, you know, nothing else is needed. If they don't have transportation to their appointment, that's when you say, okay, here's a HERDA brochure, here's a magnet with, you know, the do you have transportation and the phone number. And then what we do, we take it from there. Hopefully they'll reach out to us once they read the brochure, and we'll get them to their appointment. So that's just an example of one of the projects that we have on our website. We also have a ton of other projects as well that you can find there. Next slide. So here's the Thank a HERDA Hero page that I mentioned. Basically, and then, so like, do we have permission to share your testimony? If they say yes, that's when we put it on the website and share it with the drivers, just because it's important that we ask for permission, but also that we do share because they took time to recognize us. So we definitely like to recognize them. Next slide. All right, and that's it. That is my contact information, our website, our social media handles, and I will go ahead and drop my email in the chat as well in case anybody wants to reach out. All right, any questions?
Okay, well, thank you, Danny, for that wonderful presentation and all the wonderful information you shared. At this time, I'm stop sharing my screen so we can see one another. I would encourage everyone to turn on their cameras if you don't feel comfortable with that. I understand. This is a time for you to ask Danny questions or share your experiences with any marketing strategies that has helped your program or any challenges that you want to share. You can raise your hand, mute yourself, but this is an opportunity to share with the group and also ask Danny some questions. So anybody want to kick it off? Oh.
Hi, everyone. I'm with NV Rise in Northern Virginia. I have a question for anybody here who recruits volunteers. If that's part of your community programming, how do you do it and what works for getting volunteer drivers? I'd love your feedback.
Oh, hi, Emily. Well, we did well, I could put in the chat. We recently did a office hours on volunteer recruitment. So I can put a link to that recording and presentation in the chat for you.
I can provide an answer to that too. So we've recently posted on Nextdoor to get volunteer drivers for our volunteer driver program. One of the things that I found is Nextdoor does not allow nonprofits to access their services, but they do allow local governments to. So we were able to find a contact with our county government who allowed us to post it to their page and to the neighborhood associations. Oh, and I'm Bill Bauman, by the way, with Community Motion in Vancouver, Washington. I probably should have started with that. And I have a question for Danny, but I'll wait until we get through Emily's question.
This is Alan Armand from Minnesota, and we have also used the couple of things, a promotion basically talking about hometown heroes as volunteers, and then also used the Nextdoor, Twitter, and Facebook.
So Emily, I dropped the link to the office hours in the chat. And I think, Bill, you had a question for Danny?
Sure, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Good morning, Danny. It seemed like most of the stuff you were talking about today was for folks who maybe have access to the internet or a little bit more tech savvy. I'm wondering, how do you reach out to those who are maybe older in years and don't access the internet on a regular basis? How do you get your transit information out to them?
Well, first off, we make sure that on every piece of material, social media, brochures, anything that has any information about HERDA, we make sure to include website, email, and phone number. That's just important because, like you said, not everybody does have an email, not everybody does have the computer. So we just direct them to call us. But we do a lot of like in-person things, well, pre-pandemic anyway. So like I will regularly get out and ride with the community, kind of talk with them. So for example, one of the things I do, we have surveys like on the bus that we do annual surveys. I will take like a tablet and just kind of talk with them, you know, hey, is it okay if I ask you a couple of questions? That way we're reaching more people. We're getting their feedback in person. And then, like I said, we just take a tablet. It's super easy to type on, you know, it's the same survey, but it's easier to not only reach more surveys, but also just to get that in-person feedback. And I do like speaking at, you know, long-term care facilities, active living facilities. Basically, I'll speak to anybody who wants to listen. Not the best speaker, but I try anyway.
Thank you, Danny. We had another question. How do you get the questions to line up the way you do in your Zoom report?
So the questions line up basically when you're inputting the questions in the poll feature in Zoom, that's how they will come out. So that's the first question that you saw there in the Zoom report. That was the first question that pops up in the Zoom when you're polling the people.
Okay. And next, will you share your impaired vision brochures?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. If you want to just email me, I can definitely get that over to you.
Okay. And also, one more, how many rides does your agency provide yearly?
So July through June, June of 2020, we provided 265,000 rides. And that was just, you know, since that pandemic was, you know, 3 months of that. And then obviously the year after, everything's a little wonky, but 265 is the, you know, kind of a normal ridership.
Thank you. Does anyone have any other information they want to share? Any marketing strategies that works for your program? Oh. We do have another question from Jane. What questions are included in your annual survey?
So basic questions, you know, how friendly are the drivers? We also try to really we use this opportunity to improve. So we'll ask about like our dispatch center. How do you feel about the wait times? You know, are you on hold too long? You know, are the buses clean? And then we also ask for, you know, recommendations to make it better. And then we also make sure, you know, can we contact you after this? Because if it's an issue that needs to be addressed, then we'd like to address it. But we do try to say the surveys are anonymous unless you don't want them to be. So we do get some complaints through that, which is fine. You know, we want to make sure people are heard, but we also want to make sure it's addressed. So that's why we ask for people to put in their names. But just basic questions. We're required to do an annual survey through that. So we just kind of trying to get, you know, the general feel about HERDA.
And Bill, I see your hand is raised.
Thank you. I'm still on the topic of non-tech sort of marketing.
That's
So
fine.
we're starting a new transportation program in a rural area of our county. And I'm just wondering what others have done in sort of marketing services like that. So just to give a brief insight, things that we've done so far is go and distribute flyers and brochures at like local markets, gas stations, anywhere that I could find that has like a bulletin board or a community board. We've done some local newspaper ads, and then recently we had yard signs printed up, and I'm going to go find locations within the county where I can put those that sort of advertises our program. I'm just wondering, Is there any other options that people have come up with that have helped drive customers to their services?
I would say just connecting with local facilities, local businesses. Try to go into apartment complexes. Churches is a really good one that have found have worked. Active living facilities, anywhere where there's a lot of people, just try to go. One thing we're actually launching our volunteer program, as well as we're operating service into a new town that we hadn't before. So what we're doing with that is we have contacted these local businesses and just say, hey, can we park our bus there for a week? And then each week we're going to move that bus around. And so, for example, one week when we're going to go, to one of the grocery stores that are going to allow us there, I'm just going to be there handing out materials, handing out brochures, basically anything we have to give away. Like I'm going to be out there, just getting the recognition, getting people used to seeing the bus. Don't be afraid to just drive the buses around, just to get people recognized with your bus, and just making sure the bus stands out too. If it's a plain van or a plain white bus, just try to spruce it up a little bit, try to get a recognition out there. A lot of people recognize our buses, so that's just when I talk to people, they say, oh, I've seen or heard a bus around, just because it's got blue dots all over it. So it's just try to make it recognizable, get it out in the community, and get people used to seeing it. That's my suggestions.
Great, thank you, Danny. I do have a question, Danny. You mentioned that you go to different health centers or anywhere that has an appointment. Has they been receptive to your services? Have you noticed that people say they use your service because they went to the health center and they referred them to your services?
So I think it's hit or miss. I see here somebody just actually asked about the Do-It transportation and its success. I'll kind of tie into that. It's kind of dependent on the willingness of that facility.
Yep.
So facilities say, oh, we don't need that, which is fine. They might not have a trouble with missed appointments. And some facilities just don't, which is great for them. But some of the places that, for example, a chiropractor's office was the first one I did, and it's just a small town, Winterset, Iowa. But they love the idea. That's just one more step that we have to get people to their appointments, and it takes no work for them. They have to hand a brochure, hand a notepad, and they just refer them to us. And so we've had a success on seeing that. We've seen a success when I go talk to active living facilities, when I'm just talking to apartment complexes, just getting them out there, getting our name out there. So many people don't realize, and we're cheap too. It's $2.50 one way. That's much cheaper than an Uber. It's cheaper than gas. So it's just getting us out there, and we're open to the general public too, which a lot of people don't know. We have a ton of general public riders, especially in the wintertime, who don't want to, clean out their car or, wait in the cold. So it's just basically, getting us out there. But so many facilities have come to us and said, our residents love using you, which is something I love to hear.
Great. And we do have a comment from Crandall. Hope I pronounced that right. They said, I offer monthly bus tours using the regular transit system to visit interesting destinations. People don't realize it's travel training. We play transit trivia on the way. That's fun. Go to parks, bookstores, coffee shops, wineries, and other events. They have to contact me to sign up so I can manage the numbers. Our tours are smaller now, and I work for Island Transit on, is it Whidbey Island? Is that correct, Crandall? I love that transit trivia. That's great.
Yep. I have a saying where my goal is to trick people into learning. I don't want them to know that what I'm doing is lecturing them, but I just try to trick riders into, thinking, oh, it was my idea to ride her. I love that. But
Awesome. Can you tell us more about the Beyond the Bus, like how that format is and what, you know?
Yeah, so Beyond the Bus is actually all done virtually. Basically, it's typically from like 9 to 4. You come and go. We have like 7 or so sessions, panel discussions. We have a keynote speaker. Last year, our keynote speaker was Tamika Butler. She talked about the role transportation plays in racial equity, which is great. And I would definitely suggest you go listen to that on our YouTube or our website. But, you know, pop in and out throughout the day and basically just learn. They'll give you, it's just a full day of learning, PowerPoints, questions at the end. So many great topics. This year, our topic is increasing access. And basically we want to do that. What we're talking to about, you know, the role transportation plays in health equity. We're talking about, you know, different projects we have that are available, you know, creating partnerships with healthcare agencies. Just so many great, like how to increase access with us and, you know, with transportation in general. So Beyond the Bus is actually our way of saying, you know, it is beyond the bus. It's not like the work we do is so much further than beyond the bus. So that's what we're kind of working for now.
Great. And any other questions or any challenges that you may have, you know, starting your marketing to your community? Well, Danny, did you have any, what are some like lessons learned that from, you know, your marketing strategies? Something that you learned that worked or you tried something that didn't really work out?
So one of the biggest takeaways, and I kind of mentioned it already, is just there is no right or wrong answer. So for example, my background, I graduated from Iowa State with public relations and English. And that's, when I came to HERDA, you know, I thought I knew exactly, you know, what to do. But HERDA, you know, our ridership is a lot of people with disabilities and a lot of people like older adults. So that was completely new to me. Luckily, you know, our executive director has helped me a lot in, you know, certain fonts are harder to read for older eyes. A lot of colors are hard to see. And even like that, for example, like when I was talking about our website not being printer friendly, it's just not something I had thought about because, you know, that's not something you learn about in school. So just, you know, there is no right or wrong answer. And like I said, what works for us might not work for one of your transit systems. You just kind of have to try. And that's my biggest thing too, is you can't be afraid to do something just because you failed. And for example, like that's one of my biggest things I say for our DEI efforts. Like you can't be afraid to say the wrong thing. You probably will say the wrong thing at some point. You just have to, you know, apologize, learn from it, and move on. And you're just trying to learn constantly.
Great, great. And then we have another question. How are people funding their marketing projects?
Ours are predominantly grants. That's where like we have a lot of marketing budgets. We have so many projects going on that are funded by specific grants.
Another. Tammy said, "You're amazing, Danny." Thank you for your presentation and many takeaways.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I agree.
Thanks for having me.
And if there are any other questions or any other comments before we close out? And so when is the next Beyond the Bus event? I think you mentioned that.
It's April. The date on that presentation is actually incorrect. It's April 26th. We had to move it. but I'll be sure to get NADTC over all the information, and hopefully you guys can share it for us.
We will.
So yeah, look for April for that. Just a lot of great things in the meantime. Definitely follow us on social media. Visit our website for all of our updated things going on. We have, like I said, we're constantly getting grants. We're constantly doing projects, and we're just trying to make a difference. And I think we are. So
Great. And I think I have one more question. So did you get input for the brochures that for impaired vision? Did you get input from other like organizations that, you know, work with people who visually
so for
impaired?
example, back to our ATSI project, part of the ATSI project was to work with community members, you know, shareholders, riders, and one of the riders actually is blind. So I really leaned on her for input. She also helped me do focus groups to kind of figure out some of the problems. But part of that with her was working with that impaired vision brochure. And she's part of a low vision support group as well, that she was able to incorporate with a lot of our feedback.
Okay.
Can I add on to that real quick?
Yep.
So it's interesting. I call that, we have a group similar to that. We call it ATCI group. So it's interesting to hear that you pronounce it a little bit differently. But in regards, we've done similar projects in relation to sidewalk improvements within our local cities and counties. And I've found the same thing as Danny. You'll find folks who are knowledge or pretty much expert knowledge or experts in those areas that you can lean upon to help you put out better information or advocate your cities or counties to get better built infrastructure for people of all abilities. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Any additional comments or anything else you'd like to share?
I'll ask a question. In my previous life working with caregivers, transportation could be such an incredible way of getting rest. But I'm wondering if you do any targeted outreach to caregiver support groups or other places where caregivers might get this information. I know with my mom living so far away, having access to the transit is lifeline.
Yeah. Just like going into like, you know, long-term care facilities, caregivers ride for free if like they're with, you know, their person. So that's really great that we do that. But, you know, just getting, you know, working with the nursing homes, and like you said, just kind of giving people a break, giving like the caregivers a break when they need to. Just getting with those facilities, like the long-term care facility, that we make sure we discuss, like we talk with the caregivers, and just kind of say, you know, here's why riding Herda is so beneficial.
And you mentioned the travel training. I would think that'd be important too, because I know the first time my mom used the transit, it was, you know, scary for her. She didn't know because she never ever used it because she always drove herself. And I think that's just such a valuable program. So.
Yep. You know, folks, like I said, mentioned, you know, if they're in a wheelchair, they say, oh, well, I can't get on the bus. Or they just have so much anxiety about, you know, scheduling the trip or, you know, how to pay. That's just what the travel training is for. You know, I'll go to, for example, I'm going to go to a library here in January, where we're going to bring the bus. We're going to basically, you know, park it outside and say, all right, like, let's like let everybody board the bus, and we're going to, you know, show how easy it is to board. We'll have a driver there to answer any questions, and just, you know, help ease that anxiety that some people might have.
Great. And then Bill just mentioned connecting with your local area on aging and disability could be a good option to reach caregivers.
Yep. Absolutely.
Well, if there's no more questions or comments, I guess we can end the session, but I want to thank everyone for joining us. And thank you, Danny, for your wonderful question and wonderful presentation and answering all of our questions. This session will be available. We recorded it, so we can send it out to you, and also with Danny's presentation. And if you want to connect with him, he did put his email in the chat box. But you can also send me an email. I sent out the invitation. If you want his email again, I can send that to you as well. But thank you again for joining us, and thank you for all your comments. And again, we will send you all the materials from this session. And please go to our website. It's newly designed, so you can check it out, and sign up for our newsletter for more office hours and more events. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.